자, 이 인터넷과 관련된 얘기 두 번째 얘기로 넘어가겠습니다. 인터넷을 통한 사회 공헌의 얘기입니다. 우리가 인터넷 뭐 사이트 같은데 회원 가입을 할 때 무슨 비밀번호만 쳐넣는 게 아니라 무슨 이상하게 뭐 꼬불꼬불 쓴 TS124 막 이런 식으로 알아보기 힘든 글자를 쳐넣게 만드는 게 있죠. 그거를 우리가 보안 인증 문자라고 그러고 캡처라고 부르는데, 이 캡처에서 더 발전을 해서 무슨 일이 있냐면은 우리가 고문서, 옛날 문서 같은 것들을 이제 디지털화하기 위해서 많은 노력을 기울이고 있는데, 컴퓨터가 아무리 똑똑하다 하더라도 이 고문서 같은 것들의 활자들을 다 이해를 잘 못하지 않겠습니까? 그래서 이 캡처에서 착안을 해서 고문서들을 사람들이 활자로 인식을 해서 쳐 넣으면은 여러 사람들이 똑같은 문자를 쳐넣으면 이게 예를 들어서 T면 T구나라고 컴퓨터가 인식을 하게 만들어주는 그런 기능이 있습니다. 이걸 리캡처라고 부르는데, 다시 말해서 우리가 이런 인증 문자를 우리의 편익을 위해서, 인터넷 회원 가입을 위해서 인증 문자를 치면은 자동으로 옛 문서의 디지털화 작업을 도와주는 이런 공공선의 작업을 할 수 있게 되는 걸 얘기를 하는 겁니다. 바로 이 리캡처의 개발자, 듀오링고 공동 창업가 겸 CEO 루이스 폰 안 씨를 여기서 직접 만나보겠습니다. 환영의 박수 부탁드립니다.
안녕하세요. Okay, I want to start by asking you guys a question. How many of you have had to fill out some sort of web form where you've been asked to read a distorted sequence of characters like this one? Okay, how many of you found it very annoying? Excellent. Okay, I invented that. That thing is called a CAPTCHA. And the reason is there is to make sure that you, the entity filling out the form, are actually a human and not a computer program that was written to submit the form millions of times. The reason it works is because humans, at least non-visually impaired humans, have no trouble reading these distorted characters, but computer programs can't do it as well yet. So for example, in the case of getting an email account, the reason you have to fill out these characters is to prevent somebody from writing a program to obtain millions of email accounts. Now, these distorted characters are used all over the internet. In fact, it turns out that approximately 200 million times a day, somebody types one of these throughout the world. Now, when I first heard this number, I was very proud of myself. I thought, look at the impact that my work has had. But then I started feeling bad, because the thing is, each time you type one of these, you waste about 10 seconds of your time. And if you multiply 10 seconds by 200 million, you get that humanity as a whole is wasting about 500,000 hours every day typing these CAPTCHAs, and it's my fault. So I started feeling bad, and then I started thinking, is there any way in which we can use this effort for something that is good for humanity? See, during those 10 seconds while you're typing one of these, your brain is doing something amazing. Your brain is doing something that computers cannot yet do. So the question is, can we get you to do something useful? And the answer to that is yes, and this is what we are doing now. So what you may not know is that nowadays, while you type a CAPTCHA, not only are you authenticating yourself as a human, but you're also helping us to digitize books. And let me explain how that works. There's a lot of projects out there trying to digitize books. For example, Google has one, where the idea is that you take you take books, physical books, and then you scan them. Now, scanning a physical book, what it is it's really taking a digital photograph of every page of the book. The next step in the process is that the computer needs to be able to decipher all of the words in these pictures of pages of books. The problem is that for older books where the ink has faded, the computer cannot recognize many of the words that are in these pictures of the books. But humans can. So what we're doing now is we're taking all of the words that the computer cannot recognize in the book digitization process, and we're getting people to read them for us while they type a CAPTCHA on the internet. Okay, so next time you type one of these, the words that you're typing are actually coming directly from books that are being digitized that the computer could not recognize. And we're using what you're entering to help digitize the books. Now, the reason there are two words instead of one now is because, see, for one of the words, this is a word for which the computer already knows the answer, and we are going to use that to verify whether you're a human. The other word is a brand new word, one that comes out of a book that the computer could not recognize. And we're going to give it to you. And now we're not going to tell the user which one's which. We're just going to say, please type both words. And if you type the correct word for the one for which the computer already knows the answer, then it assumes you're a human. And it also gets some confidence that you typed the other word correctly. And if we repeat this process with like 10 different people, and they all type what the new word is equally, then one more word becomes digitized using this process. So this is how this works. This was actually a company that was bought by Google in the year 2009. And by now, we are using this process, we are digitizing approximately 100 million words per day, which is the equivalent of about 2 million books a year, all being digitized one word at a time by just having people type CAPTCHAs on the internet. Now, because we are doing so many words, funny things can happen. And this is especially true because you see we are putting two randomly chosen English words right next to each other. So funny things can happen. For example, we showed this word. I put the Korean translation there. There's nothing wrong with this word. But if you put it along with another randomly chosen word, bad things can happen. So for example, we showed this, which is bad. But it's even worse because there are millions of websites using this system. The particular website where this was shown happened to be called the Embassy of the Kingdom of God. Oops. Here's another one. This is a US politician, their website, the website of a US politician. Here's the one that we showed. So every day we insult people left and right, and there's not much we can do. OK, this is my favorite number of this project. This is 1.1 billion. This is the total number of people that have ever helped us digitize at least one word out of a book using the system. Okay, so it's about 15% of the world's population. And it is numbers like these that motivate my work. Now, if you think about it, what this process, another way of thinking about this process of digitizing books by having people type CAPTCHAs on the internet is it's like recycling energy, like recycling mental energy. We have taken an activity that people do anyways, which is typing these distorted characters on the internet, these CAPTCHAs, and we are reusing the mental power for something else, which is digitizing books. Okay, so we are recycling mental energy. Now, a lot of my projects have this exact same idea as the background of it. And many times people have asked me what motivated this idea. And where this idea came from is an idea that I had when I was a child. At the time, I thought it was a very good idea. It turns out it was not a very good idea. But it was, and it's also, I'm not the first person to ever have had this idea. But let me tell you what it was. So this was the idea. So here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a gym. This was when I was 13 years old. I wanted to have a gym where going to the gym was free. We did not charge anybody to go to the gym. But all the machines in the gym, the stationary bicycle, all the machines in the gym were connected to the electrical company. And then we would sell the electricity generated by people exercising to the electrical company. And that's how we would make money, as opposed to charging people. This was the idea. It turns out this is not a very good idea, because people are not very good at generating electricity. But it is the same idea as the underlying idea as the digitizing books through CAPTCHAs, because we're taking an activity that people are doing and reusing it for something else. Okay. Now, let me talk about the latest project that I've been working on. This is a project called Duolingo. It is also based on this same idea. I think it's worth saying how Duolingo started. So I started working on Duolingo about 3.5 years ago. I was in a very fortunate position in my life. I had just sold my second company to Google, and I didn't have to work ever again, or my children. They never had to work again. So the first thing I did is I retired. But then I got bored. And then I started working on a project. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to work on something that would help the world. And in particular, I wanted to work on something related to education. It's because I think that education over the next 20 years is going to be revolutionized. This is something that the internet has not yet revolutionized education. And I think over the next 20 years is going to be revolutionized. So I wanted to do something related to education. But my views on education come from where I come from, my home country. So I was born in Guatemala. This, by the way, is a public service announcement. That is where Guatemala is. And in case this is in the United States, this gets confused a lot. This is not where they keep the prisoners. It is not the same place. So Guatemala is a very poor country. And a lot of people talk about education bringing equality to different social classes, but I always saw education as something that brought inequality to social classes. Because you see, the rich people, the people who have a lot of money, are able to pay for a very good education for themselves. They can go and study at Harvard, and then they remain rich because they have a very good education. The poor people can barely afford to learn how to read and write, and therefore remain poor because they can barely read and write. So I always saw education as a huge divider between social classes. So I wanted to do something that would bring equal access to education to everybody, regardless of whether they had money or not. This is what I wanted to do. Now, I decided to concentrate on one aspect of education, because education is very big. So I decided to concentrate on one aspect of education, which is very big throughout the world, and it is learning a new language. So it turns out there are 1.2 billion people in the world learning a foreign language. Now, the majority of these people, 800 million of the people that are learning a foreign language, satisfy three properties. First of all, they are learning English. Second, the reason they are learning English is in order to get a job or to get a better job. And third, they are of low socioeconomic conditions. So most people learning a language in the world are poor people learning English who want to get a job. That's most of the people learning a language. But at the same time, the ways there are to learn a language, especially online, cost a lot of money. So it's this irony that most of the ways there are to learn languages cost money, but most of the people trying to learn a language don't have very much money. So I wanted to make a way to learn languages that were completely free, 100% free, never charge the users. So the question became, how are we going to make a way to teach languages without charging the users? And this is where the idea, again, of the gym came up. So the question is, can we take language learning and extract some value? Can we recycle the mental energy that I spent learning a language in order to do something else that we can extract value for? And the answer to that is yes, and this is what we are doing with Duolingo. So what Duolingo is it's a website where you learn a language, but as you're learning a language, in order to practice the language, you're also helping us to translate things that have never been translated, and we get paid for those translations. So for example, CNN is one of our clients. So what we do is CNN writes all of their news in English. They send it to us. Then we give the news to our students who, as part of practicing learning English, are translating CNN news into their native languages. And then those translations are sent back to CNN, and CNN pays us to have the translation. So instead of charging the student, CNN pays for the translation. And that's roughly how it works. I'm going to play you a 1.5-minute video that I think explains this better. Hopefully the sound will work.
It's a big world out there, billions of us trying to live, love, prosper, and make sense of our brief time on this planet. Since the dawn of humanity, we've been passing information from one person to another through a common language. Unfortunately, you can't communicate with others without knowing or learning their language first. A similar issue has manifested on the web, where text can be penned in dozens of languages, each of which demands a reader's fluency. We've developed an elegant solution to both problems, a way for you to learn a language for free, while at the same time helping to translate text from the web, enabling a wealth of language-shackled information to be liberated for all of humanity. It's called Duolingo. Here's how it works. Let's say you're a native English speaker who wants to learn Spanish. We start by giving you a sentence from a Spanish website and asking you to translate it. Wait, back up. How can you translate a language you don't know? First, Duolingo only gives you sentences that fit your language level. Beginners get the really simple sentences from the web, and advanced users get the more complex ones. This way, everybody becomes a valuable translator. And second, if you're really lost, you can always see possible translations for words you don't know. Afterwards, Duolingo helps you understand and memorize the words you hovered over through educational examples. You can also vote on the quality of other students' translations, which helps you learn by seeing how others translated the same sentence. And because you create valuable translations while you learn, we return the favor by offering Duolingo completely free of charge. No ads, no hidden fees, no subscriptions, just free. To put the potential benefit of Duolingo into perspective, think about this. If 1 million people would use Duolingo to learn, the entirety of English Wikipedia could be translated to Spanish in just 80 hours. Duolingo. Learn a language while translating the web.
So that's how roughly Duolingo works. So we launched Duolingo approximately 2 years ago as a free way to learn languages, and ever since we launched it, it has become very popular. This, for example, and it's very good. For example, PC Magazine gave us the editor's choice for learning a language. And this is our traffic. So this is how many users are using Duolingo. This is actually a little old. By now, we have about 12 million people actively learning a language on Duolingo. In fact, Duolingo is the most popular way to learn languages online. In the United States, there are more people learning a language on Duolingo than in the entire public school system. There are more people learning a language on this platform. We also have, you can learn a language through Duolingo on the web, but we also have apps. Duolingo is the #1 education app for both Google Play and also iPhone. And last year, Apple chose Duolingo as the iPhone app of the year because it's so good. And the types of things that people say about Duolingo are very positive. For example, this person said, in the past 2 days, I've learned more from Duolingo than Rosetta Stone in over a month of use. Rosetta Stone, by the way, was the most popular way to learn languages online in the United States. It also cost $1,000. Duolingo is more effective. Or there's this other person saying, this is probably the single greatest thing currently on the internet. This was my mother. Now, one of the reasons why people like Duolingo so much is because it's very enjoyable. See, we know that one of the hardest things about learning a language by yourself, or learning anything by yourself, is keeping yourself motivated. It's very difficult to keep yourself motivated. So because of that, we've spent a lot of effort making Duolingo feel like you're playing a game. So while you're learning on Duolingo, it really feels like you're playing a game. So the way language instruction works on Duolingo is that a language is split up into different units that we call skills. So for example, one of the units is called food. That's where you learn anything about food. So for example, ordering in a restaurant. And the way it works is that once you complete a skill, you unlock new skills. So it really feels a lot like a game, where at the beginning you only have one possible skill, but then you start unlocking new skills. Now, for each skill, we also have a strength bar that measures how well you know that skill. And if you do anything that is related to that skill correctly in Duolingo, your strength bar goes up for that skill. And if you make mistakes, your strength bar goes down. And also, if you don't use Duolingo for a while, or you don't use that skill for a while, then the strength bar naturally decays to model the fact that you're forgetting things. This is something that gets people to come back often to Duolingo, because everybody wants to keep their strength bar as full as possible for every one of the skills. Now, in case this is not enough to get you to come back to using Duolingo, we also send you reminders to get you to continue being committed to Duolingo. The most effective one of which is when we send you a picture of this guy crying to get you to come back. We've tried many types of things to get people to come back, and it turns out our mascot crying is the most effective one. We've even tried different amounts of tears at the bottom to see which one is more effective, and this is the winner. Now, learning on Duolingo, when you're inside a lesson of Duolingo, the way it looks is that you have these little exercises that you have to do. The exercises teach you certain concepts. So for example, this exercise on the left teaches you that the word in Spanish for boy is niño. Other exercises, you have to say something to the app, and it tells you whether you said it correctly or not. And if you get any exercise wrong, then you lose a life. So you have 3 lives for each lesson. If you get an exercise wrong, you lose a life. And if you lose all your lives, you have to start over. Now, if you are able to finish the lesson without losing all your lives, then you get points. And it is at this point, whenever you finish a lesson, that we tell you, OK, you just learned some concept. If you want to practice what you just learned, then you can help us translate something that is related from the real world to what you just learned. So for example, if you just learned food or things about food, you may practice by translating something that is related to food from the real world, like a menu or something. So then we send you to a document that you can help us translate, and it is these documents how we finance Duolingo. Okay, now, this is also one of the reasons why people like Duolingo so much, is because they get to learn with real-world content. So not only do you learn with these small gamified lessons, you also learn by practicing with real-world content. Now, when we started working on Duolingo, we didn't know anything about how to teach languages. So what we did is we read books on how to best teach a language. But then we pretty quickly realized that books on how to teach a language are very similar to books on diets. They all contradict each other. So, for example, on the diets, I mean, there are some diets that say you can only eat meat. There are some diets that say you can never eat meat. And they all contradict each other. It was the same with books on teaching languages. They all contradicted each other. So what we started doing is, at the beginning, we just took what we could out of these books. But then we started improving our own way of teaching languages based on the data that we have from the users. So, for example, if we ever want to determine whether we should teach plurals earlier or later in the course, what we do is we do an experiment with our users because we have so many users. So what we do is for the next 50,000 users to sign up on Duolingo, for half of them, we teach them plurals a little later than for the other half. And then we measure which ones learn better. And whichever ones learn better, then we can start teaching plurals a little earlier or a little later to everybody. So using this method, we are improving Duolingo very significantly every day. In fact, every day Duolingo gets better because we do new experiments with millions of users. Okay? And it is because of this that Duolingo is very effective. In fact, an independent study found that if you use Duolingo for 34 hours, you learn the equivalent of 1 semester of university education on that language. Now, what's amazing about this is that 34 hours is less than what it takes to do a semester of a university, so it's very effective. And so it's very effective. I'm going to skip this just because I'm running out of time, but I do want to say, so the website is duolingo.com, and I do want to say this. In fact, we are launching a website entirely translated to Korean next week. So starting from next week, you will be able, Korean speakers will be able to learn English for free on Duolingo, and very soon, within a few months, you're also going to be able to learn Japanese and Chinese from Korean. So this is the first time that we are doing this, and it's going to happen next week. So thank you.
루이스 본 안 씨와 좀 더 몇 가지 얘기 좀 나눠보겠습니다. Have a seat, please. 공짜 영어 교육이 관심 많이 가는데요. 우리나라에서 듀오링고에 대해서 질문드리겠습니다. 공짜 영어 교육 관심 많이 갈 것 같고 우리나라 그 교육 시장에도 여러 가지 그 변화를 가져올 수 있을 것 같은데 다른 나라의 듀오링고가 들어갔을 때 변화의 과정을 봤을 때 우리나라에서는 또 어떤 변화를 줄 수 있다고 보십니까?
I did not get any translation.
Oh, really? 지금 통역이 안 된다고 그러는데요. 자, 그러면은 뭐 할 수 없습니다. 제가 영어로 질문을 드리죠. 됐습니까? 이제?
Now I can hear.
천만다행입니다. 자, 듀오링고가 다른 여러 나라에도 뭐 많이 들어간 걸로 알고 있는데 그 나라에서 교육 시장이나 또는 사회의 변화를 여러 가지 가져왔을 텐데 어떤 변화가 우리나라에 들어왔을 때 예상이 되시는지 한번 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
Yes, whenever we launch Duolingo in a new country, we see, first of all, we see very quickly, within 3 months or so, Duolingo becomes the most popular educational app in both Android and iPhone. We see that at first. Then within about 6 to 9 months, we see schools starting to use Duolingo in the classroom, some of them. The way they use it is that the students do Duolingo. Instead of the teacher teaching to the 30 students, they do it themselves, and the teacher becomes more of a person to answer questions. So we see that, and we think, and in fact, there are some countries where the entire educational system, public educational system, is using Duolingo, and so we think this is very effective, and it's good because in many places class sizes are very big. And when you have a very big class size, you don't learn very well. But in this case, each student is getting something. They can go at their own pace. So I think this is the type of thing that we hope to see in Korea as well. And for us, Korea is very important. And this is the first time we've launched in many countries. This is the first time where I actually go to the place to actually launch. Because for us, the number of mobile devices that there are in Korea and how much they get used tells us that this is a very important market for us.
알겠습니다. 시간이 모자라서 간단하게 한 가지 질문만 더 드리겠습니다. 일종의 듀오링고도 일종의 벤처, 스타트업이라고 얘기를 많이 하죠. 우리나라에서도 스타트업을 생각하고 있는 그 젊은이들도 많은데 한 가지만 충고해 주신다면 어떤 게 있겠습니까?
Yes, I would say, at least for me, I would say work on things that matter. This is advice that was given to me by somebody else, by a person named Tim O'Reilly. You can choose to work on two things. One thing is just to make money for yourself, and the other one is on things that matter, that are actually going to make societal changes. And at least on the internet, the things that have ended up doing best are usually things that start as projects that are more for societal impact than for just making a quick amount of money for yourself.
네.
So that would be the advice that I would give.
알겠습니다. 감사합니다. 오늘 아주 인사이트 있는 좋은 말씀 감사하게 생각합니다. 수고하셨습니다.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.